Welcome to Thank You for Your Service in Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. My name is Tom Heiser and I will be your host. Today we'll be talking with Desert Shield / Storm veteran, Haiti Uphold Democracy, and Iraqi Freedom veteran, Paul Morrison. Paul, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Paul, tell us a little bit about early life, where you grew up and where you went to school.
I grew up right here in Wisconsin Rapids. Born and raised here. My family's here. I went to school at Lincoln High School, graduated in 1985. Like any other teenager in Rapids, I got a job at the grocery store here during high school, and just typical fishing and having fun.
Okay, so after high school, did you go on to college?
Not right away.
Okay.
During high school, when I was a junior, I got talking with one of my teachers at the high school who happened to be a member of the National Guards. When I was considering my future when I graduated the high school, I didn't really know where I was going to go. I was thinking about college, wondering how I was going to pay for it, what I wanted to do. Just a lot of unknowns, and he put the idea of why don't I talk to an Army recruiter. One thing led to another, and I enlisted under the delayed entry program while I was a junior, and I went to basic training soon after I graduated high school, and I went straight into the National Guards, right into the military, right out of high school.
What motivated you to enlist?
Again, graduate from high school, looking to succeed at a job. I didn't know really what I wanted to do or what I was capable of doing. The more I looked into the military, the more I realized that could give me a purpose and help me realize what I wanted to do in the future. I guess I was always looking for a job that I could help people, okay. Which helped me later in my life. But all the jobs that I really wanted to do is I wanted to make a difference while I was doing something, and I felt the military could give me the best chance to do that.
So what did you enlist in? What MOS did you enlist in for?
Initially, I enlisted in the Wisconsin Army National Guard with the 120th Field Artillery here in Wisconsin Rapids. And there was only a few jobs that were open. And I initially signed up in food service to be a food service specialist, an Army cook. It was something I was interested in, but I didn't quite know if that was going to be my future in the Army. So I did that for a little while as a cook. And then I went to my job training at Fort Dix in New Jersey, and became a food service specialist, and then came back and then worked with that in the unit.
Okay, so you're done in Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go to basic?
Fort Dix, New Jersey. One side of the base was all for basic training, and then when I finished, then they sent me to the other side of the base to go right into food service school.
When you arrived at Fort Dix,
Mm-hmm.
nervous?
Very.
What was basic like for you?
You know, there was, you show up on this bus and you look around and there's people from every walks of life, from every state, just everywhere. Everybody has their own unique qualities and beliefs about what it was going to be like. And as soon as the bus pulled up, the doors come open, a drill sergeant comes on the bus, uniform with his round brown hat, and he's just screaming to get off the bus, screaming. I mean, I don't even think my feet hit the floor leaving the bus. Throwing our stuff on the ground, standing in formation, he's getting us into standing at attention, and we didn't even know what standing at attention meant. And at that point, it's like, oh, I'm thinking to myself, what did I get myself into now? And it's too late to turn around. And it was pretty nerve-wracking. It was a lot of yelling and screaming and this and that. And at the time, it didn't make any sense. Just screaming and yelling at us, telling us go here, go there, do it this way. And there was no initiative. I mean, we had to do it exactly the way we were told, what we were told, when we were told to do it. And again, initially, none of it made sense. You just do it and try not to be singled out.
So you're with the Field Artillery Unit here in Rapids.
Correct.
Okay, and you go through Cook School at Fort Tex, and you come back.
Right.
World seemed a little bit different to you after basic training and AIT?
Quite a bit. It felt like my world slowed down to a crawl. I was used to that fast pace, the running all the time. I still folded my clothes at home in a certain way, a certain dimension, and put them away at a certain. Everything has to be ironed. I can't wear a shirt without it being ironed. I just had that way, and it was a little difficult rejoining the civilian population. But there's a lot of values and a lot of lessons that I held on to, because I guess the military gives you a new purpose. It gives you a new way to live and a new ideals, and I held on to that. But it was good going back into my civilian life and as such, and going back to a job.
So you're doing the National Guard routine.
Mm-hmm.
You have a drill every month.
Right.
You go to
1
camp.
week, right? One weekend a month, we go over to the armory here in Rapids, and we would drill there. And as my job, we'd make meals for the lunch meal and for the unit and serve it and everything. We were fortunate when I was in the Guards that we went to Reforger, Return of Forces of Germany. We went out and trained with the German military at Grafenwehr, and that was really exciting. You know, we cooked for a couple hundred people here, but we went over to Grafenwehr and cooked for 5,000 people, and worked with a bunch of food service from around the country. So that was pretty exciting to have such a large-scale operation going.
So now you're getting to see the world.
Yes, it was the first time that I actually got to really get out of the United States and see a lot of different things and meet a lot of different people, experience their cultures and stuff like that. And that really gave me a taste of what it was like to travel in the military. And I guess it got me thinking at that point that I could do this all the time. And
so did you make a career change within the military, a job change?
Yep. At that point, I decided I need to make my future. And so I put a request in to go active duty. I did all the paperwork. It got approved. And I enlisted to go active duty Army. Went back through the MEP Center, got all the processing done there. I had my choices of duty stations. I was trying to get to Hawaii, but Hawaii didn't happen. So I got Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And one thing my recruiter was airborne, and he told me what it was like to jump out of planes, and I thought, man, that's what I want to do. He says, I can get you to Fort Bragg, but I can't guarantee you jump status. I said, that's okay. Get me down to the post, and I'll find a way. And that's what I did. I had a leave date. I had a couple weeks off, signed out of the unit, and went down to MEPS. They put me on a plane and sent me down to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and then they picked me up and took me to Fort Bragg.
Jump school. Interesting concept, to say the least.
Very different. I was new into the military and active duty, and we went down, they sent us to Fort Benning, Georgia, and it was unique because I thought, well, I'll be there with a bunch of Army people. It wasn't. It was Army, Navy, Marines, anybody that jumped. Marine Recon, Navy SEALs. It's anybody that jumps goes to jump school. So it was a mixture. I mean, I got in my room and I had 2 roommates that were Marines, and it was different, but we all had the same training through jump school. And it was fast-paced. You know, it was like 3 weeks of ground school and then a week of jump school. I mean, you had to learn how to, everything from entering the plane to exiting that door and to how to land correctly. So it was fast-paced and very physical. A lot of running, a lot of PT, pull-ups, would be physically demanding because male, female, short or tall, you had to be able to do specific tasks to jump safely. So you had to be able to pull your own body weight and such like that. So you had to be able to do so many pull-ups to show that you could pull yourself up to land safely. It was an interesting time. You know, we had a week of ground school, learning how to jump off a little platform, how to land right, keep your feet and knees together so you don't hurt yourself. It took us all the way up to the 34-foot towers where you hook up like a big zip line, and you had to jump out and you had to do it correctly, you know, and you had to qualify all the way up there, and then you got your jump week where you make 5 jumps in 4 days. And on the one day, you do a day jump and a night jump.
It's jump school. Not everybody passes it, do they?
No. And I think our class started out with over 500 people. I think we probably lost close to 100. Just physical things, people getting hurt. They just couldn't make the demand of it. And it's like any Army school. They have a set standards, and you have to make those standards. You have to keep up with those runs. You have to pass and qualify all the way to jump, and you have to make those exits safely. And I learned later on in my career that I had a few close calls jumping, and I'm glad I had that training. I'm glad they stuck to that rigid way to correct the malfunction, you know, and because a couple times I had some issues, and I referred back to my training, and it got me through it. So our last jump, well, the first jump was pretty good. It was a night jump, but during the day, meaning I had my eyes closed the whole time because I didn't know what was going on. And that was great because you hit and you say, okay, let's go to the second one. It was a little tougher because you knew what was coming up and you knew how hard you were going to hit the ground sometimes. And the last jump, the 5th jump, was our graduation jump. All our family, and they're all watching us jump, and we form up and we march in from the drop zone and we get our wings. And it's like anything in tradition. I had my father down there, and I got my wings, and it was a tradition of that the military's had for a long time as blood wings, where they take the back of the 2 pins off, they put it on your chest, and then you pound them in there. Is a tradition, and it's something that we held dear in the military as our traditions. And I got my blood wings put on for my father, and that was pretty special to me.
Cool. Okay, you completed jump school. Mm-hmm. Now what?
I returned back to the 82nd Replacement Detachment. They put me with the 313th Military Intelligence Battalion in food service at the time, because that's what my job was. And which was pretty unique, because we not only fed the Military Intelligence Battalion, we also fed the 82nd Replacement Detachment. So we still had a large-scale operation. That was very interesting. I put a lot of the skills that I had learned in the National Guards, but on a larger scale. And they were pretty unique because they took us further than being a cook. We went to culinary arts school, learning how to make roses and wedding cakes, and learn some really good cooking skills. But after 3 years, I was up for reenlistment at the time, and I thought, man, I really don't know if being in food service is my passion for later on in life. And so I put a request in to change my job to military police. I've seen the military police around the post, and I said, man, that's something I really want to do. So I put my request in, it got approved. I reenlisted for another 3 years. And a short time later, I was off to Fort McClellan, Alabama. At the time, that's where the MP school was. And they did a one-unit station training. In other words, the MPs go through basic training, and then they go right into MP school. It's the same drill sergeant, same location. We were inserts. There was a bunch of us that went in inserts for that MP school training. So we were inserted with a bunch of people that had been there already for 8 weeks of basic training. So we were kind of new, had some history in the military, a little bit longer than most of the trainees there. So, and we went through MP school.
So you outranked a lot of the people that were in the school, number one. Plus you had
yeah.
the jump wings, plus you had the airborne.
Right.
So you were kind of
We were wearing a beret and everything, and people weren't, and so it was quite different. Drill sergeants were still pretty strict on us there, but not as harsh as they were with the trainees. They kind of respected the fact that we were already established in the military and just coming for a school. School was challenging. It was something new. A lot of police work, handcuffing, learning a lot of different ways that the military does police work was interesting. I graduated that, and right after I graduated from MP school, I got orders for Korea. So I was like, so okay. And they shipped me off to South Korea.
So how long did you spend in South Korea?
Well, they consider it a hardship tour, a 1-year tour. They call it hardship because you're not allowed to take families or a lot of personal gear vehicles and all that kind of stuff. You basically live in the billets there. I was stationed at Camp Hialeah in Busan, Korea, South Korea, which is way in the southern tip along the coastline. I did a year. I served a year there, and that's about the time that Desert Shield the Gulf War was getting tense and getting built up. And right before my date to return back to the States, they put a freeze on movement. The military often does that when there's large deployments of troops deploying overseas to conflicts, that they put a freeze on the people that are already like in other countries. And so I was going to be stuck there for possibly another year in Korea. But there were a few of us there that were already jump qualified. We were already airborne. And when they were looking at our personnel records, personnel people said, "Oh, you're airborne." I said, "Yep, jump qualified." Well, you guys are going back then. They sent us right back to Bragg. And we got a little free time. We were able to take just a little bit of leave, and we met our units in Saudi Arabia. So they shipped us over to an airborne MP unit already in country.
So now you're in Saudi Arabia. Now the world's changing again, isn't it? Nervous?
Yeah. It was different.
Well, but it's what you were trained for.
right. The Middle East was a completely different atmosphere. A lot of desert and a lot of sand. The temperatures were different. It was a different experience, and we had a different mission out there, and it was interesting.
What can you say about what your mission was without getting into trouble?
We were a combat support military police unit, so we were did EPW was one of our missions. So we would take a lot of the EPWs and process them and send them to permanent camps. With the Saudi military had permanent camps. We'd be those temporary ones, taking them off the line and getting them processed and then sending them down.
So you were still an MP, not a prison guard as such. You were an MP.
MP.
Okay. So, did you make it into Iraq, or did you stay in Saudi?
We came up on the, I guess, west side. It's been a while ago. Probably a little bit, but not too far. We weren't right up on the front lines, but we were back a little bit, so we'd send buses and stuff up and pick up the EPWs. And at that time, we knew we were going to war, and it was, again, back to the unknown and not knowing what we're going to face. It just wasn't what anybody was expecting. A lot of people surrendering, a lot of Iraqi soldiers surrendering day and night. Our camp was 24 hours a day. Hundreds of them were just surrendering at any given time. We still had to be aware of our surroundings and what was going on, but there was a lot of processing going on and a lot of Iraqi soldiers surrendering.
So how long did you spend in Saudi Arabia? So you went actually from Desert Shield to Desert Storm.
Right. Desert Shield was all the before the invasion started. We would make sure that the military base clusters were safe and secure. We were MP units, so we had quick reaction forces that if a terrorism measure would happen or they would get attacked by any terrorists or something, we could send a quick reaction team out there. So we'd drive around before the war started, and we'd set up MSR support, military supply routes. We'd set up kind of like highway patrol. We would drive up and down, make sure the right convoys got priority to get up on towards the front lines and stuff like that, and help people out that broke down. And if convoys needed a rest stop, they could pull into our area, and we provide security while they could take a rest. So we did all that until the war actually started, and then our mission changed from there.
Okay, so you spent about how much time did you spend over there?
I'd say no more than a year, 8 months to a year.
Okay, so then you came back to the States?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you come back to?
Went back to Fort Bragg again.
Okay.
With a new military police unit. I served in two different military police units, the 21st MP Company Airborne and the 118th MP Company Airborne. And I came back and we assumed the role of as an MP. MPs have very diverse or different missions. They have a garrison unit mission where they do patrolling, security in the hospital, writing speeding tickets, investigating traffic crashes, responding to crimes, just like civilian police. But they also have another combat support mission. They support the infantry and other units and have to be ready to go on a moment's notice. So that's rotated around to the different MP companies there in Bragg, and so we did that for a while. I got fortunate enough to go down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Before it was what it is now, it was a refugee camp for the Haitians fleeing Haiti. They were trying to flee Haiti when a military coup had ousted the president there, and a lot of Haitians were getting in boats and trying to get to the coast of Miami, but they would get as far as Cuba. And we set up refugee camps and protected them there, and that was a really neat experience, not just to go to Cuba, see the whole base down there and everything like that. And after watching that movie, A Few Good Men, it intrigued me about the base, and actually seeing it was something really neat. We got to walk the entire 17-mile fence line that separates Cuba, and we walked with a Marine Corps detachment and got to see the whole thing, and so it was, again, more travel. Got to see a little bit of the Caribbean and stuff like that, and that was very interesting.
You talk about the Haitians. Did you end up going to Haiti?
Yep. After that, the country was still in a turmoil while we were doing that, and then at one point a decision was made to restore the elected power, the rightful power, back into the country. So we got geared up, and I was going with another airborne unit to liberate the country from this military takeover. And at the last minute, we got turned around, and we went back, but we still went in, but we air landed there, and helped that country repel these military people that were treating the Haitian people unfairly. And the military and the police force, there was a lot of corruption there, a lot of propaganda put over the radio stations and TV stations, and we secured those and turned them back over to the Haitian population. Eventually, the elected president was returned, and I got to be on a security detail that guarded his house while it was being rebuilt. And so it was interesting to see the steps with that. And again, I got to experience more culture and more talk to different people, and that just, I guess I was hooked there, because it was so neat to see and meet other people. And I wanted to do some more traveling.
Paid travel.
Yes.
Okay, so this is your second enlistment yet, correct? Or have you re-enlisted again since then?
I believe that was still my second enlistment.
So you're done with Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
Come back to the States, or did we go back overseas?
Came back to the States. Served some more time. And at that time, that was a lot of different things changing and stuff like that. I went back on jump status, but I was now in the 18th Airborne Corps. We had a 16th MP Brigade, had a bunch of different MP units, and one of them that they had in there was a garrison unit. They did constant patrolling, military police investigations and stuff like that, and I became a military police investigator for a while on Fort Bragg, such as a civilian investigator for the police. I investigated crimes a little further and stuff there. I drove the Corps Sergeant Major for a little while. The 18th Airborne Corps Sergeant Major, I was his personal driver and for a while, and that was an honor to drive somebody with his stature. And the one exciting thing is Sergeant Major Kidd, the Sergeant Major of the Army came down for a visit to the post, and I got to drive him around as well. So I got to meet some of the highest enlisted ranked people in the military, and that was really exciting to see them. And eventually, I served some time with the garrison unit there. And then I re-enlisted for my last time on active duty, and I ended up going back to the 118th MP Company, which is another airborne MP company in the Corps, to serve out my remaining time.
So you made it back to Iraq.
Yes. I got out 1995 of active duty, and I had been arranging this. I knew my enlistment was coming out. I had done almost 10 years active duty, and I knew at that point that I needed some education. I wanted to go to school. That's something I didn't get because I went right in the military. I did all this time, but I didn't get that degree that I was really focusing on. I tried that in the active duty, and being on a airborne unit, you were never in the States long enough to attend a regular class because you were always going somewhere, always doing some kind of training somewhere. So I decided to get out and go to college, but I didn't want to give up the military. So I rejoined the National Guards, and I went to work for Department of Corrections. I worked at Dodge Correctional Institute in Waupun as a prison guard, which is something close to what I was doing in the military. And I did that for about a year. Got excited with that, and I got a job offer with the Adams County Sheriff Office as a jail officer, which was closer to Rapids than Waupun was. And I took that position, and it allowed me to work nights there but go to school during the day at Mid-State Tech in Rapids here. And in 1999, I was able to graduate with an associate's degree in police science. And I went back in 2000 and got an associate's degree in correctional science. I finally got my education, and eventually I got promoted to patrol officer with the Adams County Sheriff's Office, and I was finally doing a job that I really, really enjoyed. And at the same time, I enlisted right back into the Wisconsin Army National Guard with the 32nd MP Company. At the time, it was a detachment out of Madison. So, rank came there with my military active duty background. I made E6 squad leader fairly fast and was put in charge of a squad. Now, instead of one team, I was in charge of 3 teams. A lot more responsibility, and I was ready for it. And my job was to make sure that that squad was ready for anything that would come its way. In the National Guards, we got fortunate enough to go over and be part of S4 into Hungary and Bosnia.
Explain what S4 is.
It's the stabilization forces going into the Bosnia, Croatia, going into that area, that not just United States troops, forces, but many different other countries will all come there to make sure that the region was stabilized and stuff like that. And we worked with the Hungarian Air Force on their base, and it was, again, a different culture, and it was a different thing. And we did patrolling with the Hungarians and stuff like that, and then we went downtown, worked with the civilian police as well. Very exciting to hear and see how things worked in other countries and stuff like that. we went on numerous other state missions and within the United States, but then we were given the notice that situations in the Middle East were getting tense, and we got the notice that we're going to be going back to Iraq. Our unit was deploying to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom. So we had to prepare for that mentally. And then there was a lot of training. They sent us down south to other bases to go through a whole bunch of trainings to make sure we were prepared as a National Guard unit to go carry on a mission over there. And that was for any unit getting ready to deploy. They had to go through the same training, not saying anything because we were National Guard, but just as a military unit to be prepared for what we were going to face over there. So we got all that training done, and then our weekend drills turned into 2 or 3 weekend drills a month. So there was a lot of processing, paperwork, and such that we had to get done. So after our other training, we were shipped off. We were flown over to Kuwait.
So now you're back in Kuwait. You're back in the Middle East again. Hot, dusty.
Very. It was, as soon as you stepped off the plane, it was just, the intense heat was just hot. It was new, you know, and we landed there, and none of our vehicles or anything like that, they were coming in they didn't fly over with us, they were coming over by ship. So we had basically what we were carrying and a duffel bag and our weapon, and that was about it. And then they shipped us off to a forward operating base in Kuwait, and we waited for our gear to get there.
You shared an interesting story with me a few days ago about having to go on a mission, and it's 3 of you. You're all law enforcement background.
Oh, yeah.
Can you share that again?
Well, we were, I think that was we hadn't been in country that long. It was August of the year we got over there, so we'd only been in the country a few months, and we were in what at the time called the Green Zone in Baghdad. And once we were there, we worked long hours in the hot, and we were in a bombed out palace, and we were trying to make a better life for ourselves. You know, it was, that part was new. Everything, every modern creature comfort, every modern, just electricity. We had everything taken away, and it was a cot and a sleeping bag with the bug net, and that was, you know, any pictures you put up on the wall. So we were trying to make this as comfortable as possible, and so we'd go out, and we had some money. We were going to look for air conditioning units and stuff like that to put, because we eventually got down to the basement where it was a little cooler but still hot, and AC units would have been nice. So we were coming out, and they said, okay, we need some one team to go out with our other headquarters team to go get some AC units and stuff like that. And as a leader, I looked at my guys, and they were all sleeping, and they'd been working hard, and they finally got a day off, and I said, oh, who do I wake up to go take this mission? I said, well, I looked at my sergeants, and I said, hey, these guys have been working as hard can be, and why don't we just take the mission? Should only take an hour or so. We'll be back. Let them sleep. We decided to. So off we went into a busy market on the other side of the Tigris River. And it was unique because all three of us were civilian law enforcement officers, and two of us had SWAT training. So 3 sergeants in one vehicle, and we were all the team leaders of those vehicles. So we had gotten down and drove by another vehicle. It was another military police unit from Iowa, and we were going one way or they were going the other way, and they were driving down the middle, kind of a medium bank, and we had just got by them, and then it hit. And at first explosion, you don't really realize what's happening because the noise is so loud and the heat is so intense that it feels like the hair on your body is burning because it's just a fireball. And it lifted the back of our vehicle up and slammed it down to the ground. The doors flying open, gas can, tires going flat. I mean, the hatch is flying open. I looked in my mirror, and all I could see is fire and a big fireball going up and black smoke. And once we realized what had happened, we realized that the vehicle we had just passed had hit an IED, an improvised explosive device. It was a landmine that was detonated over this other vehicle. So instinctively, we went down, turned around, and got into a position where we could see if we could help. And that's when everything broke loose. RPGs being shot at the vehicle that got hit, insurgents opening up with machine guns from the rooftops on this vehicle, and we're trying to get our backup and everything. It's very chaotic, very stressful. My gunner, it was up on the turret when the explosion went out, so he like a concussion, and we had to take care of him, and we heard from across the street that guys yelling that there were injured soldiers. And that was hard because this was a kill zone in there. There were bullets flying, RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, and it was a lot of black smoke, and things were blowing up in the vehicle, like the ammunition and stuff that was inside there, that was blowing up. And we immediately got our machine gunner on there to keep those insurgents away from shooting at the wounded soldiers that were laying in the street. And I just looked at my other officer, who is now a Fond du Lac police officer, and we decided we got to do something. And our civilian training kicked in a lot. And I decided I'm going to go get them. And so we got a litter team together, and I ran out in the street and started pulling some of the fire towards me off the wounded guys, and we were able to get a stretcher team in there, and the firing was still intense, and it was very difficult because the insurgents were popping out one window, shooting, and then popping back and coming out another window, so you never knew where they were and or how many. So I made it up in the bank and saw one soldier laying on there with his leg all twisted in a direction that it shouldn't be, and I didn't know he was still talking to me, but out of it. And the other litter team went in the back, and there was another soldier there who had very severe injuries, and we got him in a stretcher and got him out right away. Where the other teams are keeping fire and these insurgents, and we got that litter team out, and we got him out. At the time, I didn't know his fate, or even if he was still alive. And then I splinted up. I went to splint up this leg because it was turned in a direction that I didn't think I could move it. And the bank employee, Iraqi bank employee, very nice, helped me, assisted me with everything. And when I said I needed cloth or a piece of wood to splint this leg, she was there. She helped me get whatever I could, and it was very unique, the compassion that the Iraqi civilians had towards us to help us. You know, we everything we saw in the news, Iraqi military is this, they're bad, they're this. I didn't get that idea. I got the idea that there was a lot of civilians there that were very happy that we were there. And I got this leg splint, and I checked him for other injuries, and he didn't have any of his weapons, so I made sure that I had two on me. I had a pistol and a rifle, and made sure he had access to one. And I said, I don't know what we're going to do, but we got to get out of here. Back alleys wasn't even thought of, because I'm not going in a back alley that I don't know where it leads to. So we're going to have to go to the front door. And as soon as we came out, there was a gun jeep there with a bunch of guys there shooting, and the door was open. No communication, no nothing. He just had the idea that that's what we needed to do, so I got the injured guy in there, and they got him out of there. So we had saved a couple guys that day, and there was a couple more soldiers, officers that were pinned down behind some vehicles, and we were able to get them out. And all this was using so much of the military training that we had learned, so much of this combat training that was so ingrained. It was all involuntary. It was just done, just because we knew what had to be done, so we did it. It was determination, and we weren't going to leave anybody behind.
All because you want to go get some air conditioners.
As it turns out, we never got the air conditioners that day.
Okay, I understand you were injured over there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you comfortable talking about that?
Yeah. As time went on, we were in a police station in Baghdad. We had to travel through some kind of bad parts of the town to get there, and we had worked that police station, kept security of it, retrained the Iraqi police forces there to do that, and that was a challenge at times. We often attacks and stuff. We got ready after about a year. We got ready. Okay, we're going to start rotating back home, so we're getting our stuff ready. And somebody in the military decided that the mission wasn't done yet, so we got extended longer. So we got extended a few more months. So we had to unload all the equipment we had packed up, ready to go home, and get it back out and get ready to go. And they had moved us. We finally got a nice place in a palace. We had a big swimming pool that we had gotten going, and I mean, we were starting to get it nice, and we had to leave because another unit was rotating there, and they put us in tents. Wasn't bad with air conditioning in a basement, but intense with a little tiny air conditioner. It was just hot all the time. We went to hot cots in a tent at another base. And what they had decided is that there were police stations that had not had contact yet. Our unit had, each platoon, 30 people or so, had worked and trained with one police station in Baghdad to help them get up to strength and reteach them how to be police officers and security and stuff. But there's some other stations south of Baghdad that didn't get that kind of training. So we started going to some of these after about a year of us being there, we started going to some new stations, training them and stuff like that. And we had spent all day at one station down south of Baghdad, and spent all day there. And the Iraqi police were pretty receptive and glad we were there. And we started heading back for the day. And not all of our vehicles were armored. We were starting to get some armored Humvees. They had extra plating and stuff like that on the top, bottom, and but we didn't have enough for everybody. And the vehicle I was riding in was not armored. It was just a regular Humvee with a few little plates bolted on the side. So as we're heading back, the first vehicle went and was getting ready to turn because of Road T intersecting. He was getting ready to turn, and all of a sudden, going back to that first IED blast, it was the only thing I remember is a lot of dust and dirt flying everywhere, and chunks of concrete hitting my face and my helmet, and it was like everything was in slow motion. I didn't know what had happened. I knew we were still moving because I could feel the bumps on the road, bumping up and down, and the smoke as we were moving, the smoke was building. All the doors got blown, and the roof got blown up and was sitting kind of an angle on top of the vehicle. And as the smoke cleared, I looked around. There were there were four of us in the vehicle, and when the smoke cleared, there was just two of us in the vehicle. Everybody else was gone, but then my gunner was laying on the floor, and I was kind of laying on top, and she wasn't really moving much, and I guess I didn't know what had happened. My ears were ringing. I looked at the dashboard of the Humvee, and it was all ripped apart and dash hanging down and doors blown open, and everybody's gone. It took me a while to figure out that an IED had hit on the vehicle I was in, and later on, we were told there was almost 350 pounds of explosives went about 10 feet from my door, and I didn't even know. But the Road T intersected, and there were buildings in front, and I don't remember a whole lot about it, except I remember crashing into the building. And I never realized how much adrenaline keeps a person going, because here and there I decided that if this was it, if it was my time, that I wasn't going to go down sitting in a vehicle. So I got out. There was a lot of wreckage and stuff, and I didn't know what it was. We had hit all kinds of stuff, but I had forced the door open, and I was looking for a target, looking for anybody that was coming near me, and I wasn't going to do it. And I had my rifle out, and somebody pulled the gun out of my hand and put me on the ground, and it was my own soldiers treating me, and my knee was I don't even know how I was standing. My knee was all swollen up, and I had done a lot of damage to my knee, and my rifle was between my knees when the explosion happened, and the pressure inside the vehicle was just shrunk me down, and it had kind of crushed my spine a little bit, because it just brought the pressure just brought me down like that, so it was hard to stand. And the next thing I remember, people are telling me to stay still, and next thing I remember, I opened my eyes and I was looking at the rotor blades of a medevac helicopter taking me to a hospital in Baghdad. And then they're pulling, like, I don't remember, it was very chaotic at the hospital, and they were pulling things out and trying to clean up, and not sure of all the shrapnel and stuff, and it wasn't just the shrapnel. The ID was put behind a concrete curb, so everything, not just the shrapnel from the bomb, but all the concrete came flying at us. And I was fortunate because I was wearing a pair of Oakley ballistic glasses, and they got knocked off my face, and I found them later, and they had chunks of shrapnel and concrete stuck in the lenses. So without them, I looked at the vehicle later, and there was giant holes where I was sitting, that if I was sitting straight up and hadn't been thrown forward, that would have gone right through me. So amazingly, we were all treated with wounds, but nobody had died in the vehicle, which was amazing. And I guess the angle of the bomb was trying to take the gunner out or whatever. That's why the tires didn't go flat. So it's amazing we all survived. Everybody else, the pressure had actually blown people out. Now 45 miles an hour down the road and getting blown out and rolling down the road is dangerous as well. And the explosion hit so hard that the gun on the top flew up in the air and snapped the barrel in half. Because we found that later on down the road, and I don't think we ever caught who set the bomb off on us, but it was it was something different, you know. After surviving that first one, having the bomb directed on me we're just lucky to be alive.
Paul, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.